I'm so glad you could join us. It is Unleashing Kingdom Voices. This episode is brought to you by Millionaire Momentum. 3 keys to momentum: save money, grow yourself, and build wealth and impact. There's a 3-minute video I'd love you to see. It's in the show notes of this episode. So I'll tell you what, this is going to be a fun one. Who knows what's going to happen? My guest is a neurocycle facilitator under Dr. Caroline Leaf. She's an amazing author. She is a business coach. She may not be on the Instagram. And she is a speaker. So will you please help? And I got to say one other thing she's really good at. She's a good launder, because I had a real bad tomato sauce on this shirt. She got it out. So you please help me welcome my dear friend, Elana Vandeventer.
I'm so glad I managed to get a stain out of your shirt, because I'm still struggling to get a stain out of
Yeah.
my shirt. Well,
And,
where is it? I don't know.
and
You
you're
you
like,
could see it.
yeah, you're like, are you sure, T? I'm like, it's a miracle. I don't think I've worn it since I had it with you either. It's like, look at that. That's a miracle. It's my favorite shirt too, by the way.
It's a
Alana, so glad to have you here. My goodness, it's been a while to get you on here, but I think it's worth the wait. So, y'all, you know Dr. Caroline Leaf. Well, Alana's got amazing success with the neurocycle facilitator. But I think, Alana, we got to go to the story. The story tells the journey. And I think, when you tell your story, I think it gives hope to so many. So this is what I always say, Elana. I say, go back to your childhood. What did you like to do when you played? And then I'm like, well, some people have problems. You had a brain injury. And now here you are, a brain surgeon. I mean, not literally.
yeah.
So take us back a little, and I may interrupt you because I'm so excited to hear this story. I've heard it, but I want to hear some more.
Isn't that how amazing God is? Those
Yeah.
areas that we once felt disqualified, and that He goes in those landmines and He restores, and He makes it
Mm,
landmarks.
mm.
So it's like you said, I had a childhood brain injury. I had to learn to walk and talk at a young age again.
Wow.
And that just stuck with me. That really just became my limit, and what I'm supposed to, or not just supposed to, what I'm allowed to. I think that's a better description of the limit that I placed on myself. What am I allowed to do?
Wow.
What am I allowed to dream and want for my own life? And so that happened at a young age,
Mm.
and I was labeled stupid in
Oh.
school. And I remember, and it's just again, God, he just blows my mind. The fact that I'm able to speak in front of people is just
Yeah.
again how he's able to renew what was not lost, but because that's a worldly view. But he's able to renew and to rewire and restore and revive more than anything else. He's
That's
able to
awesome.
revive from the inside out. The fact that I'm able to speak in front of people way before I
And English is your second language.
English is my
Come on.
second language.
You can speak in front of crowds and in front of you as a speaker and then one-to-one. That's just still, I just fascinated by that. I think the very first time I met you, Jessica Shakur was doing this Yes Lord Collective, and this is how God just connects people. And that was January, probably about a year ago, and they had all these speakers, and Alana came on, and instantly she captured my heart. So it wasn't until like I just followed her, you know how we do on Instagram, and then I won a contest, and I got to have 1 hour one-to-one. It was like after she was over, it's like, whatever you have, give it to me. So she goes, she's in Canada. She does have in person, but look, what does God do, man? That's so cool.
God is so
So
good.
now you
Yes.
had a teacher that really slammed you in was it fifth grade? Tell us about
It
that.
was in now I go back into, I don't know if US also had standards prior to grades. Did you have that?
I don't remember. It's too long ago.
So South Africa, born and raised South Africa, and immigrated to Canada over 6 years ago. We
Okay.
had, back in the days, we used to, I don't know anyone else that remember the days we were with standard 1, standard 2.
Oh
So
wow.
I always have to think of, like, I almost had to like do that whole thing in my mind, but it was grade 8.
Oh
And I
wow.
remember I was struggling.
Yeah.
And that's what I absolutely despise labeling because labeling is disabling. It also
Mm.
removes hope.
Wow.
And I remember I was struggling with maths, and he labeled me as stupid and I will never
Oh.
get anywhere in
Mm.
life. And that
Oh.
was his words. And I took it on as, and it's not even, I have no resentment towards him or feel that he was just basically affirming what I already believed about
Mm.
myself.
Dear.
Because again, our thought, our life heads in the direction of our most dominant thoughts, and we will always receive evidence of what we believe as truth.
Wow.
So he was just giving me evidence of what I've already believed about myself.
Oh my. Excuse me, but please take out a notebook, or if you're listening to the podcast, you might have to stop. Just telling you, every time she talks, I'm like, where's my computer? I record her so I can record, so I can get her notes down. So you always say evidence of what you believe
Yes.
determines your
So
thoughts.
we will always receive evidence of what we believe as truth. Our life heads in the direction of our most dominant thoughts.
Wow.
My most dominant thoughts was after 40 years, I was able to rewire and renew my mind. But it was, I'm not enough.
Yeah.
I'm not capable. And this one hit hard. I'm not deserving.
Oh, geez.
And
So
so that I had evidence of for 40 years of my life.
wow, you tried. You were very earnest to try and create things and do things, but it wasn't until the neurocycle program. It's kind of like fit you like a glove. But before you had that glove, you had some really. What happened? You were in South Africa still, and you just got like a modeling signed up, and then what happened?
Yeah, so there's a gap between like I grew up, I didn't go and study. There wasn't one of I was not capable. So I
Oh
think
well,
that I'm not even gonna apply for anything. Financially, we also couldn't afford it.
right.
So I didn't go study. I had an eating disorder.
Hmm.
I ended up, I was always I remember growing up, I just want to backtrack a little bit because
Sure.
there's something else that we can do for each other as well that's very honoring. Um, we always, there's a real focus regarding external. And so when we
Yeah.
comment someone, it would be, oh, you look beautiful, T. Look at you. And what, what happens is, I don't, we can't be serious.
I know.
Ah, there's so much freedom and joy. Happiness is so freeing, so good for our brains. A joyful noise.
Yes.
But what happens is I grew up and I remember we were introduced as I'm one of three girls. Okay.
Okay.
We were introduced as the clever one, that was my older sister, and I was the pretty one. And then my youngest sister, she was just the crazy one, and she would just always speak her mouth.
Oh wow.
Not speak her mouth, speak her mind, sorry.
Yeah. No, I understand.
Yes. And so we were introduced like that. And for me, my identity
Wow.
was shaped by an external
Yeah.
validation. So I was always searching for that compliment because if I had it, then I felt enough.
Mm.
If I didn't, I went back to that belief that I'm not enough. And so I was always striving, always searching, and always feeling lost and this disconnect. And
Oh.
so at the end of the day, striving very hard, working my way in, I got signed as a model, and I thought,
Yeah.
this is my purpose. This is
Yeah.
what I was made for. I've, I'm. That's now. I've reached
You've
this.
arrived.
I've arrived. I love
Yes.
it.
Okay.
I've arrived,
Yes.
and I did not. I was. I've never felt so lost than what I
Um.
did at this time. Now, what happened after that? There was beautiful events that you got invited to,
Yeah.
constant striving and hustling to be seen and validated. And oh man, you look so, look at these photos, you look
Wow.
stunning, you look beautiful, again based on the external. And
Right.
so what happened is when we immigrated from South Africa to Canada, that was all gone.
Oh wow.
And all of a sudden, I was in this small town, which I still question why people would stay there, because it's one in the middle of Winnipeg and Thunder Bay. It's extremely cold.
Cold.
We arrive in winter, -50.
Wow.
I've never realized that vitamin D is so necessary in one's life
Yeah.
than what I did when I lived there. And so we arrived, and everything that I felt was what I was made for, and my
Mm.
identity was stripped away. And to the extent where I felt like I've got nothing left,
Mm.
unseen, unheard, unloved, and forgotten.
And freezing to death. I've
And
traveled 1 week in college where you have to plug your cars in to keep them. And I like 1 week, and I'm like, I've never been back. It's just too cold. Right around where you were. I thought about that recently. I'm like, oh, I couldn't wait to get back home. So
yeah,
when you were doing the modeling, is that where some of the eating disorder happened, or was it just a continuation?
it was actually prior. It
Okay,
was prior to that
makes
event.
sense.
I was constantly comparing myself to others. And if you have a belief that I'm not enough, then you will never measure up.
Phew, that hits home. Okay. So
You will never measure up. So I was at my skinniest, and I wanted to be skinnier
oh
because
gosh.
according to me, I was not enough.
Oh,
So I ended up eating disorder. Also, something that I realized when I done my own neurocycle is that these beliefs were even showing up in my relationships
oh, really?
and my friendships. I
Wow.
almost rejected people before they could reject me because one, I was not enough, and
Okay.
also I was not deserving of anything.
Wow. Can I interject there? Because I was chubby when I was little. And so I was, and then I moved a lot. But I'll never forget my junior year in college. I finally found some Christian friends. And I remember pulling up to the dorm to go hang out with them. And I'm like, they like me, even though I'm chubby. They like me. So they did that kind of not enough. It can play really havoc in relationships, good or bad.
It will, because you will receive evidence of it.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
I remember if I think back of some of my past relationships, I was always the one being dropped.
Oh, wow. That's tough, man.
I was the one that, again, just receiving evidence of that. I'm not enough, so he's leaving. And
Uh,
it's almost like you manifesting it in a way
yeah.
as
I was
well.
gonna say you kind of after you start feeling like you're not enough, you start manifesting characteristics where the person that you maybe like or love, and all of a sudden they're like, "Whoa, it's like an energy, like,
Yeah.
oh, there's some bad energy coming from there." I don't usually talk about energy, but that's the
I
first thing
mean,
I thought.
me neither, but it is. It's really what it is, because that thought creates your behaviors. So the
Yeah.
energy, I think what you're referring to is how you behave,
Okay.
because that influence your environments. So
Sure.
if you have that thought, your thoughts create your emotions. So how you are feeling, which is a beautiful
Mm,
messenger. I know now it's a
yeah.
valuable guide messenger to address the behind, the
Yeah.
because, the why, which is your thought. But you will then, your emotions, if you don't take your thoughts captive, you will behave because it's from your emotions. Emotions are in our bodies for 60 to 90 seconds.
Mm,
If you stay in that, you're actually choosing to stay in it.
yeah.
So behavior will show up because it's driven by emotions, and then you basically just affirming your thought. So it's like
Right.
a cycle.
Yeah. So
And the energy which you're referring to is, we have actually mirror neurons.
right.
So when we treat ourselves in a certain way, we actually teach others and show others how to treat us.
Wow, that's good. I never thought of it that way. So then your neurons and your stuff came to cold Canada. What happened there?
So what happened is, it was just a downward spiral. Daryl was my husband, was always working. We
Mm,
obviously, um, I was a mom, stay-at-home mom at
mhm,
that stage, and he was at the mine. He's a mining
mhm.
engineer, and so new country, he's finding his feet. He's also trying to figure out how things work, and he worked a lot, and
Yeah,
I was alone. in the house cleaning. All of a sudden I had to clean. So another thing that South Africans are not used to, and what we are so blessed, is
Yeah.
that we have people working in our houses. We
Okay.
have people working in our gardens. And so
Okay.
I had someone, I still love her and I speak to her as much as possible. I had someone in the house that helped me to raise my kids, and also she did all the cleaning, she did all the washing. And they became family. Our
Wow.
gardener and domestic girl
Nice.
in the house became family for us and our support system. And so I was removed from having someone with me in the house, but not just that. I went from feeling seen and valued and worthy
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
all that to now cleaning toilets.
Oh, that's a tough one. Yeah. Because
And
some people are happy just to be a mom, but it's like some people, yeah, they're blessed to be a mom, but they know there's more in them. So I hate if I offend in you, I'm sorry.
I love that you're saying that, because I was exactly where someone might be now.
Okay.
What I realize is, because I can remember my saying to myself, you are just a mom, you are just cleaning the house, you are just, and that word was really overgeneralization on
Oh,
my side. And
yeah.
what happened is, when I started my own healing journey, I realized that there's this belief that was created that we have one purpose.
Mm,
And if we miss it, it's gone. And
right.
so it's like you have one opportunity. And I felt like, remember before, I felt like that was my purpose. Yes, it might
Yeah.
sound stupid, but for me, it was like my identity was linked
Sure.
in it and in it. So I want to just say this for someone that is a mom and feels like, I'm made for more, but I'm just a mom. I
Yeah.
also don't like that saying that you are made for
Yeah.
more, because it feeds into that belief that I'm not enough.
Yeah.
But I also want to say that nothing can infiltrate, impact, diminish your enoughness. Because of Jesus, it's done. It's not something
Mm,
that you have to
come
strive
on.
for, work for, to earn, to deserve.
It's
Because of
good.
Jesus, it's done. It's your inheritance that you get to choose to live from
That's
daily,
good.
knowing that it's done. So your purpose, our purpose, is not, besides loving God and loving
Hmm.
others, that's our main purpose.
Wow.
The
You know,
vocational, our calling, looks different.
sure.
So what I realized when I was just a mom, that was my purpose in that season. It
Okay.
changed, but
Yeah.
in that season, it was my purpose. And
That's
I look
good.
back now and I can see the value
Yeah.
and how I was able to serve my kids.
Mm.
I see it now, but when I was in it, I was struggling with mental health issues and depression, and I was silenced by guilt and shame, because for me, I believe you can't love God and still struggle.
Oh, wow. So you had
And
it.
so I didn't ask for help, because that was just an indication
Oh,
I'm not believing enough. I don't have enough faith.
jeez. You
And
know
that
about just a mom? I remember I retired after 13 and a half years as a radio announcer, and it was devastating. I'm like, I'm just a mom. These are, but that, I mean, it was like I knew there was more, but I'm just a mom. And I remember chiding myself saying, Teresa, now being a mom is very, you need to now pay attention to your kids. What did I do? I went off into marketing and didn't pay attention. But you're right. I like how you said that. It is a period, and I know your kids, they're amazing kids. So at that period, they needed a mom presence, but it wasn't the end of your journey.
it's no, and that changes. Like, it's, if you think of purpose and calling, it's two different things. Our
Okay.
purpose is to love God and love
Thank
others.
you.
Our calling is the vehicle, and
Mm,
it's seasons, and so the how it looks like will change as well. And God knows where we need it,
yeah.
where we need it the most. And so I now, after all these years, can see how being a mom
Wow.
in that season was the biggest blessing and the area I could serve and where it was most needed.
Wow. That's cool to be able to look back and really okay. So what was the drive in you though? You always had a but you're stuck in a cold place that you can barely move. So, and you still knew you had stuff in you, but what was that like? I mean, I know how cold and lifeless, even just living in a cold, lifeless place. I heard someone on a podcast say, I choose to live in San Diego because I know it's sunny. So I'm going to choose. I'm thinking, well, good for you. But some of us don't get to choose like that. So you didn't have any choice.
I didn't have any choice, but I know now when I look back, I knew that that is where I was supposed to be planted.
Wow.
Because I had to go through a process of being removed and
Okay.
being my roots were not where it was supposed to be.
Wow.
And so when I always refer to it as my unearthing,
Yeah.
God almost unearthed me, if I can create this vision or visual behind it. God had to unearth me and plant me back in the soil where it felt dark. I was back in the soil, and
Okay.
where I was removed from all the
Just the
all the
trappings of,
noise.
yeah,
Yes, all the
modeling and
noise and the
culture.
external.
Yeah. And he had to literally put you in the dark, lonely place. You now can say that was your unearthing, but maybe someone's listening and saying, I am in the darkest of place right now.
Mm.
I don't know what's up from down. So, testimony in Hebrew means do it again. So continue with your journey because it's a powerful one.
I I see them. I see them because I was there, and I know it is a very, very. You feel. I think there's two things that happens. There is a disconnect that happens, and an isolation, and
Mm,
a it is a dark place, and it feels like there's no hope.
mm,
What also happens is we look at the psychology of the installment. When we look at the psychology of the installment of hope,
okay.
there's something that happens when we suffer with mental, like maybe it's anxiety or depression. For me, it was depression, and it was to the end where I was almost end my own life, like I was
Yeah.
suicidal. And
Yeah.
what happens when we in this dark place? We it's They've done a study on kamikaze pilots, and
Yeah.
they were wondering why did some of them follow through with the mission and those that didn't. What was the difference?
Mm,
There was one thing that stood out that happened. Why they didn't follow through was there was an action of them lifting their heads
wow.
for a moment.
Wow.
That is the installment of
Mm,
hope. So what happens when we suffer with mental issues and depression? Our heads are down.
yes.
We are ruminating. It's over and over, and that's the kamikaze pilots as well. As they focus on their missions, their heads are down. They're focusing on the target, and they're trying to say these things over and over and over
Whoa.
to themselves. But those that didn't follow through lifted their heads.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, they realize that there's a tomorrow and there's something bigger than themselves, and
Mm.
that their lives is worth living.
Wow. That's so powerful. I can think of my times of depression, and I gotta admit my head was always down, or someone would say, straighten up, Theresa. I'm thinking, well, don't tell me to straighten up. I'm just lost in the depression and the anxiety. And there was a period of time where I felt like I had every time I got up, I felt like I had a monkey on my back. And I mean, we're saying we know if you're listening live or recorded, we're saying we understand that feeling. But just that simple act, maybe your journey is going to lift your head in the morning and just, go through the process of healing. But why don't you start with one thing, and that's lifting your head?
Just lifting your head and choosing. I remember the day where I planned to take my own life,
Hmm.
where I was sitting on the ground, and there
Okay.
was a moment of total surrender where I was like, this is done. I'm done.
Okay.
Done. And I remember, and only now that I've been through my own healing process, those things stands out to me. It becomes there's some meaning that I've seen,
Yes.
and those little moments where there was actually these hope pockets and things that happened. Because that moment, when I was like, God, if you really exist, then I need you now more than ever. And I know now that when that moment where I just fell back my head
Yeah.
because there was a couch, the bed. So it was actually my bedroom. When I fell back, remember exactly the scene. I was sitting on the
Mm.
floor and I fell back, just like I'm done.
Mm.
And in that moment, you know, when you fall back, your head just lifts.
Wow.
And I can't say that it was a light bulb moment and all of a sudden I was skipping out of the
Yeah.
room and I was like, life is a joy. That did not
No.
happen. It was a journey.
Yeah.
And what happens when we actually allow ourselves to feel? Feeling is healing.
Amen.
And when Jesus had all these, I actually want to look for this. I saw this quote during the week and I was like, this is so powerful because Jesus showed us all these emotions.
Yes.
But there's something that happened. I know I grew up with this belief that emotions are bad, and if you
Mhm.
showed positive emotions, then you were full of yourself. We
Yeah.
always had to suppress and keep it in. And what happens is it causes emotional congestion
Yes.
that leads to minor and major illnesses because it needs to
Wow.
come out. So if we allow our emotions to guide us and become these valuable messengers which God intended it for, we can actually, there's nothing that can't be healed if we use our minds the
Mm.
way that God intended it us
Come
to
on.
use it. So
Mm.
when we allow ourselves to use that valuable guides that's within us, we are able to heal from the root,
So
and
good.
we get to the because why we're feeling away and why we're behaving
Wow.
away, and so we're able then to renew our minds. But I had to decide. I had to make a choice. Everything is a choice.
Right.
Everything is a choice. And
So
for me
you
it
were
was just choosing daily just to
you
wake up.
you were in that iceberg, and all of a sudden, some area code came across your mind. Tell us about that.
Yes. So while I was, it was actually during, I must say, during COVID was where my healing started.
Wow.
So
Praise God.
it was a, remember, isolation was also a big thing there.
Okay.
And I really, years what happens, and I actually just shared on social media, um, the light in the Lord. And that
Mm.
was one thing that I was choosing to do lately.
Okay.
One thing I was looking for things that I can be grateful for.
Wow.
When I say I was choosing to look for things to be grateful for,
Okay.
when we when we one of the things, another one is rejoice.
Okay.
When we rejoice despite the circumstances. Now, when I say things didn't, there wasn't evidence, external evidence of things, because it was still the same, right? I
Right.
still felt I was still in the same situation. I still stayed in the same town.
Mm.
I was still in the same house. Daryl was still working. I was still with the kids. Everything stayed the same. But when we rejoice, despite the circumstances,
Okay.
our brain secretes neurotransmitters that
Mm.
help us cope.
No.
So if you ask me what is something that someone can start doing now,
Mm-hmm.
it's choosing to rejoice. I was
So
just
good.
putting on worship music and dancing my
Mm.
butt cheeks off,
Good.
rejoicing in the Lord, despite
Amen.
the circumstances.
The war fighter. Let's dance on some fire is what Alana's probably thinking back then.
The second thing was I was choosing,
Yeah.
and again, the word choice is so powerful because that's our mind in action. We think, we
Okay.
feel, and we choose.
Choose. Yeah.
And I was choosing to look for things to be grateful for.
Wow.
And the third thing I did was I was plugging into the vine. I love your the vine dresser.
Yeah.
I was plugging into the vine daily.
Okay.
And in that season, in COVID, during COVID, God gave me a vision.
Okay.
And the vision, I still have it. I printed it out. It meant nothing to me. And the moment I was just like, okay, I'll just let's just hold on to this. This is a
Awesome.
promise. I don't know, it doesn't make sense, but I know who knows what this means. And so I printed it out. It was a tree,
Ah,
and the tree had the roots, is
interesting.
a brain,
Unbelievable.
and I printed it out.
Mm.
I had no idea what it meant in that season, but I
Ah,
was holding on to it.
unbelievable.
And what happened is I eventually created the revive method because I felt like that's what happened in my life.
Okay. This story of revival continues. We're going to go on to part 2 coming up this Thursday. You don't want to miss it. The drama, the testimony, and the revival to find her voice. Part 2 of Elana Vandeventer coming up Thursday on Unleashing Kingdom Voices.